let's take it away. So I'm very pleased to welcome Jannaca Chick from Rocky Point Bird Observatory in Victoria, BC, Canada. And so let me just pull this up. Since 1994, Rocky Point Bird Observatory has refined its operations in net setup, data collection, bird handling, and team communications. Over the years, they've borrowed and adapted ideas from other observatories worldwide and created some really cool, clever innovations of their own to improve bird safety and station efficiency. So, Jannaca today is going to share some practical tips and techniques that hopefully we can start to employ with our Caribbean bird banding stations, whether you're doing maps work, so more breeding bird stuff, or if you're doing more migration monitoring, or even doing some small research for grad school. So we're going to see how adapting new approaches can make daily tasks easier, more consistent, and safer for birds in our care. And then about Jannaca, Jannaca has served on Rocky Point Bird Observatory's board of directors since 2015 and has been the lead bander for their MAPS, which is monitoring avian productivity and survivorship, or breeding bird banding, for their MAPS program for the past 6 years. She also bands for the Nocturnal Owl Monitoring Program. She recently obtained her hummingbird banding permit and has participated in banding projects across Azerbaijan, Greece, Mongolia, Thailand, Israel, the US, and visited our own Daniela in Cuba. So her experience offers a wealth of ideas that can hopefully be adapted to the Caribbean. And Jannaca really enjoys visiting, volunteering, and promoting other banding stations. So really excited to hear about how her international experiences can help us in the Caribbean. So take it away, Jannaca.
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction, Holly, and for asking me to come and do this webinar. I'm thrilled to be here. I have met Holly at IBOC a few times now, and I think everyone who is involved with birds and bird banding is automatically a friend, whether or not I have met you. So I am going to just give you a very brief history so you know a little bit about Rocky Point Bird Observatory. We've been operating for over 30 years, and the very first standardized banding took place in 1994. We wanted to see if this would be a good spot to start migration monitoring and banding, and it proved to be a very excellent place. So we went, as the years progressed, we established a protocol and we became a registered charity. Then we joined the Canadian Migration Monitoring Network. We started owl banding, we started MAPS banding, and then the Hummingbird Project joined us in 2009. This is a project that was started several years earlier to monitor hummingbirds, mainly across British Columbia, a little bit into the province of Alberta. And in 2016, we started a Sea Watch program. So this is, Canada is a huge country, as I'm sure many of you are aware. So the Canadian Migration Monitoring Network has many stations across the country. And here is Rocky Point. We are on the far west coast on Vancouver Island. We're the only Western station located on the ocean, and we are quite a busy and important station in Western Canada. This just gives you an idea of our project schedules and when we operate throughout the year, and I think that is pretty self-explanatory. Sea Watch, I'll just explain a little bit, is we have a group of people spearheaded by one person in particular, and many people join him, and they go to the very southernmost spot on the island to monitor all the seabirds that are flying by or on the water. And that happens once a week. And because we feel it's important to know what's happening on the ocean in our area to see how the numbers and the species are doing. So we have two main stations. They are only 4 kilometers apart, and yet we get a slightly different mix of species. Rocky Point was the original station, and it is on the Department of National Defense. After 9/11, access to that place was obviously had changed dramatically, and you had to get permission to go on. So we could no longer have anyone from the public coming. So in 2012, we opened a second station at a marina, and there we can host people from the public, which of course is a very important part of what we do. So these are our two main stations where we conduct both migration monitoring and owl monitoring. So we do not own this land, obviously. So these are at Pedder Bay. This is a kind of rough shelter. It's completely open, has a roof. We keep all our equipment in lock boxes during the season, and we have everything in the boxes pretty much that we need. At Rocky Point, because it's only the military and a few other lucky people are allowed in there, we have a slightly more permanent shelter that we can close up. And so these are our two main stations. But then, of course, for our map spanning, we operate at two different locations. And that is, we bring in most of the equipment. We can leave a few things there, well hidden. But so that is more of a pop-up station. And I carry most of the equipment in my car. So we operate bringing almost everything in whenever we go to the stations. Now, one thing we've been doing for a long time is putting all of our data directly onto a laptop using Excel. I know many stations still use paper. We are fortunate enough to have a tech person who has created an amazing spreadsheet for us. And I know there's a lot of reluctance in many places to go from paper to directly onto computer, but we have a lot of checks and balances built into the system for all of the species that we capture. So say a wing length is out of range or a weight is out of range, you'll get an error message. So we can ask whoever is banding to double check things. And it certainly saves a lot of time because I know how much work it is to enter everything after the fact later on in the day. Of course, we do proofread the data, but anyway, this will just give you a bit of an idea as to how our spreadsheet works. So on the right-hand side here, this is a maps data sheet from 2023. So we have all the information that you would have on the paper form on that's directly, so we enter everything directly onto the computer. We have all our different band sizes for all the different species, and each one comes up automatically when you put in the species. The band size automatically pops up, and the number in sequence also comes up. Then we have a wonderful feature of daily stats at the end of the day. You can see the number of species that you've banded, as well as the total number of birds, also the recaptures, the net hours, and the birds per net hour. So it saves you a lot of time in having to do things later. And like I said, we have a lot of validation checks, so that hopefully there are very few errors. It doesn't mean that you don't check your data later on, but as we all know, as banders, data is very, very important. So to improve things is always how all that works is really helpful. We also have a recapture page, and on the computer, we have all our banded birds from previous years. So if you get a bird that was banded in, say, 2018, that's going to pop up along with the age and sex of the bird when it was banded. So you can see that in the screen on the right-hand side. It has actually the date banded. So you can see at the top here, that was 2020. So all that information is automatically there. I have been to stations where you have to go through cards of previous birds banded, and whoa, I'm so glad that I don't have to do that as a bander. It's so nice to know exactly when a bird was banded so that you can check. And sometimes it's just so exciting to know immediately in the moment. And our same day recaptures are highlighted in green, which tells us immediately, yeah, we've already had that bird today. maybe once, maybe twice, sometimes even 3 times. And then we also have a band inventory page. So we can start off the season with all our bands already in there, all the numbers. And as I said, our spreadsheet calculates automatically what the next band number should be for each band size. And this is also super helpful because then all your inventory can be there. And of course, you can add to it as necessary. In fact, we have shared our Excel spreadsheet with other banding stations, and they may modify it for their own use, but we are happy to share a basic spreadsheet if anyone is interested. Oh, and here's one cute feature, which I don't think you might necessarily use in the Caribbean, but you'll get a kick out of this. So northern saw-whet owls, of course, do not molt all their flight feathers, and we do keep molt cards for all our owls that are not hatch year. And so we have it color coded because one night somebody thought, why can't we color code the age of each feather? And we found that is not only a lot of fun, but very useful. You can look at it and immediately get a picture of what the molt is on that bird. So now I'm going to play a little video. This is how we weigh our birds at Rocky Point. And this is a technique that we got when one of our banders came back from banding in northern Alberta.
So this is how we weigh the birds at Rocky Point. We have a scale, we have a bucket, we place the bucket on the scale, and the bird, which is in the bag, this is how it comes to the station in the bucket. You zero everything, and then you take out the bag with the bird in it, and return everything to the scale except for the bird. You'll get a negative number on the scale, and that is the weight of the bird. It has several advantages. One is that the bird is already returned to the station in the bag. You don't have to take out the bird from the bag, place it into a tube. It minimizes handling. Also, it's sanitary. These bags each are used once and then they're cleaned.
So since we have switched over to this way of weighing birds, we have just never looked back. And there are many other stations across Canada and North America that now use this system. And I try to take it with me wherever I go. And well, because we are banding outside, and I'm sure some of you are, and sometimes wind is a factor, this is
Both of our stations are outside, and so sometimes we need a windscreen, but we want something that is portable and easy to pack away. So we've created this folding windscreen using acrylic panels and duct tape, which is perfect for putting over our scale on windy days.
Of course, we wouldn't knock it over if there was a bird in there, but we left that in because it was kind of funny. I have noticed when I go to other stations that they don't have the same large weighing scales that we do. They often have these smaller ones. So the big bucket that we use is too heavy for that. So I have found something lighter, and this is something I used in Thailand when I went earlier this spring, and it worked absolutely perfectly well with a smaller scale. Now, this is also something we do. We have to keep track of our nets and which birds are coming from where, and one of our volunteers is going to explain this.
Hello, my name is Adam Ross. I am 14 years old. I've been volunteering with Rocky Point Bird Observatory here in Victoria for 3 years, and I'm going to explain our peg system. So we have 3 different kinds of pegs for bird bags that we use. We have normal pegs, which indicate a new bird without a band, and they have the number of the net on them. We have red pegs for priority birds, such as birds that get stressy or hummingbirds. And we have green pegs for birds that are recaptured who already have a band. We also have special blue pegs for closing the nets.
Okay, so that is how our clothespin system works. And we have found it really helpful to flag priority species at the banding station. These are birds that you want to band as quickly as possible and then release them. So I'm sure you have certain birds in the Caribbean that tend to get more stressed out than others. We like to do them first and get them on their way. And then, of course, there are hummingbirds. We also want to do them as quickly as possible. Any bird in heavy molt, whether it's a young bird or an adult with a lot of pin feathers, I like to get them banded and released quickly. And generally speaking, most of our small birds, we like to do as quickly as possible. So we use a pulley system for our nets that are set up permanently. That's for owls and migration monitoring because we are banding every single day. And we have found this to be a huge advantage. It's a system one of our volunteers saw a version of in California, and they brought it back, and we have adapted this. It really makes life as a short person who has to extract birds a lot easier. So we're just going to demonstrate this.
Hi, I'm Melissa Anderson. I've been a volunteer here for about 3 years. So the nets we use at Rocky Point, well, on the pole, we use a pulley system. So there's an eye hook at the top, and in order to pull up the net, we just pull on it. The top 3 trammels are knotted, and then we can pull up right to the top, and it's really easy to do. And then when we want to pull them down, we just grab them and pull them down. This makes it really easy for vertically challenged people, and also easy if you need to pull down the net to extract a bird or what have you. And then like that.
So we do have videos of some of our techniques on our website. So if anyone is interested, I can make sure to share that link. And this is how we actually tie our pulley system onto the trammels.
Instead of using poles to push up our nets, we use pulley ropes. We start out with an eye hook at the top of the pole that remains there all year round, and then run a rope through it. When you get down to the net, what you should do is on the side of the net that you are approaching most frequently first is have the short end and have the long end on the back side of the net. You're going to tie with the back end and pull with the short end here. The knot that we're using is a simple slip knot, which you do by flipping the rope and then drawing the long end up through it. So it forms a little slip knot that will untie just by pulling on it to make adjustment very simple. It doesn't need to be big, but I'm making it a little bigger than I might normally just so that it's easier to record here. We use shower curtain hooks to attach our loops to the poles. So there's lots of great reasons to do that, including less wear and tear on the loops and also ease of replacing the net if you have to do that. So what we do is bring this loop that we created, the slip knot, through the loop from the side that has the short end of the shower curtain hook. We then bring it up through the shower curtain hook, open it, loop it around that, and close it. So it's now that loop that we created in the rope is now inside the hook and inside the loop, and then pull to tighten it, and Bob's your uncle. Then we pull on the rope this way until we get the distance that we want for the next one, and do exactly the same thing. Make a little slip knot, find the short hook on the shower curtain hook, bring it through from that side, and then up from the bottom, open up the hook, get that short hook through that loop, and close it, tighten it up, and up we go. We do just the top 3 on our nets. Grab the wrong one. Short hook side, through, up, locked inside, And now we have a pulley that we can raise and lower our net without risking the mesh, and even the shortest person in your team can do this. We tie the ends of the loop, the rope together. So take one end of the rope and let it just hang there. Tie a simple knot around it so that the tail goes up the length of the rope, not on the short end. Then just flip it over and do exactly the same thing. And these knots do not have to be tight. They can be quite loose so that when you pull them together, they look kind of nice, but they're really easy to undo if you need to do it. The only problem that we have had with these is sometimes this loop will slip around out of the combination, in which case you just untie it or unhook it and do it again. It doesn't happen very often, but it's fairly easy to fix. Now, if you have to replace the net, it's really simple to detach the net from the rope. All you do is basically treat the knot like it's a button, push it through, unhook the loop, and there you go. And so 3 times you do that on each end, and you're ready to take the net off and replace it.
Okay, so that is how our pulley system works, and I personally love it. It's great if your nets are permanently set up, and the shower curtain rings make it so quick and easy to lower the top trammels, get birds out, and then put it back up again. It saves a lot of time, and it just makes life a lot easier if you're not tall. Oh yeah, sorry, whoops. There we go. So here is just a little quick tip when you're setting up nets. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Oh, there we go.
One of the problems we've found as you take a net out of the bag is that it may have a twist in it. If you're doing this by yourself, it can be very difficult to straighten out if you find a twist in the middle. But if you hold the upper trammel away from the rest of the net as you back up, you will find that you will free most of the twists, and if there are any left, they'll be right in your hand when you reach the far end of the net.
Okay, so that is that. And say you only set up your nets periodically if you're not bending every day, and you don't want to set up the pulley system, you don't need to use it, but you're relying on sticks that you find in the forest or whatever. We do have a station where we don't use a map station where we have to set up our nets and take them down every day or every time we're out there. So we found these dollar store poles, which were really inexpensive. They're actually designed, I believe, for hanging up or supporting a laundry hanging system, something like that, but they work perfectly well for raising and lowering mist nets. As you can see, they have a hook for bringing the trammel lines down, and then this U shape for pushing it back up again. And so we have several of these. They're easy to find. They don't blend into the forest, and you don't have to be looking for a stick every time you need to raise and lower a net. And of course, we always, for our nets that are permanently set up for a season, we want to make sure that they are closed very, very well so that no bird gets in there. And this is our system. So he's just tapping on the net with the top trammel open. Again, this way of furling we got from another station where we saw it being used, and we really liked it because it means we can leave the station at the end of the day and know that we're not going to be catching any birds. So we have to check our birds at different times. We have 20-minute net checks. Some places have half an hour. And because of the way our protocol is, that changes every few days. So it's handy to have these little whiteboards with the net check times clearly displayed so that whoever is going out to get birds remembers when they're supposed to go. And then when they come back to the station, we have these little whiteboards with the net check times, and that can be, so the birds can be hung up in the proper place. Another system that we got from another station, I believe it was a station back in Eastern Canada somewhere. We have, each net has its own number tag. So when we go out in the morning to open up our nets, we put the net number on each net. And then at closing, this gets brought back to the station and all the net tags are counted to make sure that all the nets have been properly closed. And then another thing we have found really useful, and I have been to places where there is no communication once you're out there extracting birds, and say you run into a problem or an extractor might need help with a difficult bird, or you go to the farthest net from where your banding station is and you've got a lot of birds there and you would like help. Well, if you have a radio, it's easy to communicate, and we find it really improves bird safety, and rather than having to run back and get help, you can just radio and someone, whoever is available, can come and help as quickly as possible. And then this is, I'm going to play this video which shows how we handle birds that might be stressed out. This is our bird hospital. And here at Rocky Point Bird Observatory, we have created what we call bird hospitals out of ice cream containers. Sometimes birds become hypothermic or a little bit stressed, and we find if we give them some time out in this container, then the bird often revives and flies away for the most part. So what we have done is we take a heat pack. This one has already been used, and you can just reuse them by boiling them, and you can activate it with this coin. So we put that in the bottom of the bird bag. We put a bag over top. Then we put the bird in here, and if you'll notice, the top has a mesh on it and a little flannel. So we put that on top. We can check on the bird periodically, and as soon as we see it's good to fly, we will release it. So I really love our little bird hospitals. You probably, all you people in the Caribbean will be laughing about the heat pack. You definitely will not need that. So just forget about that, but it's really useful if you're ever banding at a station where it is cold, especially in the morning, and birds can tend to get slightly hypothermic. In any case, these are easy to make. They don't even have to be quite as fancy as this. Any container will work. You can put holes in it. And I have volunteered at different places where I've just found some kind of plastic container and made makeshift bird hospitals, and have found that they have worked really, really well. Almost all birds will recuperate if they have a little downtime. And this is just a super easy thing to make out of whatever materials you might have available. Now, the other thing, of course, that's important is hygiene for birds, volunteers, and your visitors if you let them release birds. So because we are located near a wildlife rehabilitation center, and we have friends who work there, and they do get a lot of birds, they have recommended only using this 70% solution rubbing alcohol. If some places I've been to do use hand sanitizer, and apparently that is more difficult for birds to preen off their feathers if it gets on their feathers. So this is really the recommended best cleaner to use for hygiene. Of course, you don't want to pass anything between birds. If we see a bird that has pox or something of that nature, we will sterilize all our banding equipment and of course our hands. And during COVID, in fact, we got very conscientious about hygiene, and we have rubbing alcohol available at the banding station and for the extractors for all of our volunteers. And at one of our permanent stations, we even have this little hand washing station, which is great. You just fill it up with water, and that's really super if you have birds that like to poop a lot all over your hands. We also found that some days when it's very, very busy at the banding station, extractors might forget to take bird bags with them, or they go to the far nets and whoa, there's a lot of birds there. So we have, again, these large plastic containers, which must have had some food item or in them at some point, and we just use these to fill them up with bird bags, keep them at the far nets or also at our busiest nets, and then they're there so that no one has to worry about ever running out of bags. And here is our little tip for bird bag tying.
We have a special trick for tying our bags so that we don't get knots in the tie. We go around and up and over and just pull it through with our finger, and that gives us a foolproof knot so that even if the bander just peels it off, there won't be a knot in it.
Because we have found if you tie it the other way, you will often get a knot in this string here, and that is, once it's washed, it's really hard to get out. This is another feature we have at our migration monitoring stations, is a whiteboard where we can update daily how many birds we band and recapture. And we also update the number of species for the entire season every day as we go. This is fantastic, not only for our volunteers who might not be there every day, but also for visitors. It's a great talking point. And you don't, if these are a little bit fancy in that we have used a Cricut machine to cut out each letter, but you can just handwrite, make a handwritten one. It's really a fun thing to have at the station. As part of our migration monitoring, we have to enter in all our daily observations. So we have this whiteboard available for all our staff and volunteers where you can just keep adding whatever species you've seen or heard so that at the end of the day, you can tally everything easily.
We have a little photo set up here so that we can take pictures using our smartphones. Capture.
So this is just, this little rack is just something from the dollar store, and we cut out the center bit so that we could put our cell phone on top. And in case you want to quickly take a picture of some kind of interesting wing molt, we found this to be quite handy and very portable. This year, our bander in charge has developed his own system for photographing birds that he wants to photograph. And so he's using this particular light and has made a gray board for himself. Now this is, I'm just showing some photos here of the using reverse bander's grip. I have very, very small hands, and when I was starting to band owls, one of the banders said, you know what, I'm going to look up reverse bander's grip for you. He had never used it. He found it on YouTube, and I have never looked back. I love it. It's great for larger birds. I also find that birds, when they're put into this position, get a lot calmer. They're not used to being on their back, and they often will stress out less. They'll just become more relaxed, and you've got a good grip of them, and you can easily band them. And you can see for saw-whet owls, It's great if you have people, if you have visitors, because they look absolutely adorable when you have them in this position. The other thing one of our volunteers created for us was a very handy box for larger bands when you get larger raptors or birds that require bands that you don't use often, because they're all numbered and lettered. You can see exactly what size is where. It makes it very simple. Since I have done some banding in Europe and in Asia where they use bands that are already open, I'm a big fan of that, and we don't have that here in North America. Again, a friend of mine created this box where I can open all my bands for saw-whet owls ahead of time, and they're all in order, and I just find it makes banding a lot easier, and I really like that system. So I'm sure that many of you rely on volunteers. Most bird observatories are nonprofit, and very few people are actually getting paid. So you really do rely on volunteers. So then the question arises, well, how to recruit them, how to train them, and what can they do? How can they help your bird observatory or your banding station? So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that. So of course, at the station while you're banding, what can people do? Well, if they have no bird handling skills, they can certainly scribe, whether it's on paper or on the computer. They can help keep track of daily observations. Obviously, everyone needs people who are good extractors, getting birds out of mist nets. And then for those who are interested, you can start training them in how to band, age, and sex birds. This year, because we decided, well, we really need more extractors. It's always an issue. People get older and their eyesight gets worse, and they say, okay, I can't come and extract birds anymore. And so we have a big push on to train people who are interested. So we developed this extractor training booklet, just so that the volunteers can keep track of where they are at. So understanding the Bander's Code of Ethics, obviously very important. What is our protocol? Getting competent with all things around safe bird handling, knowing your different grips, how to put birds into bird bags, how to take them out, and so that they can progress slowly. And at the back, they can keep a list of all the different species they have extracted every time they have come out. So hopefully this is going to work well, and we're going to be able to have more extractors in the very near future. So another thing that volunteers can help with is education and outreach. Some people don't want to come to the station, or they don't have time to help out at the station, but they can come out on certain days if you're having a booth at a fair or in some situation, or helping with school kids, and they would prefer to do that. So not every volunteer has to come out to the station. There's many different ways that what we're doing can be promoted. And I know from what I've seen from the Caribbean Bird Banding Network, I believe you do a lot of this, and it's a great way to reach people about the importance of their birds. And another thing that we get people to do is act as visitor liaisons at our stations, because we do get requests from different groups, and they want to come out and visit the station. And there might be quite a few of them. And if the bander is busy, it's really helpful if you have someone who just comes out to handle the crowd. We also, of course, it's really important as a bird observatory or banding station to look for scientific collaborations, because that's obviously a big part of the research aspect of bird banding. Here at Rocky Point, we are not affiliated with a university, which so we look for any kind of collaborations that we might be able to find. And that is really helpful in promoting your banding or your bird observatory. When it's off season, hey, get net mending sessions happening. Those nets all need to be mended, and they often don't get done when people are working in the field. So we create occasions where people can hang out. We have coffee, we have snacks, and we can spend a few hours mending nets. And then how can your bird observatory find some community involvement? Well, you look for things that might work, or special bird days, as in World Migratory Bird Day is a big part of all across North America and Central America. We have created in Victoria a bird week that is around World Migratory Bird Day, and we've been reaching a lot more people in the public through that. We also found a local high school class there that wanted a project, and they built us a banding station. We just paid for the materials, and they built it and put it together. That was really saved us a lot of money, because I know most places we're always looking for help and volunteer work and because none of us have a lot of funds. So there's fundraising ideas. Banding workshops are great, and that's one way for bird observatories to make money. And we also put on special species workshops. Gulls and shorebirds are a big one, and I am about to do one on owls next month. That is something that people are happy to pay for, to learn more about specific species groups. And then classes, anything bird related, even drawing classes, or do a big day and get sponsored. Or sometimes we can do local talks and actually get some money for doing that as well. Then there's media. Media is important and really gets your name out there, what you're doing, whether it's through social media or you have a website. Talk to your local radio and TV stations. Some places even do podcasts. Write articles for newspapers and magazines. And of course, Zoom presentations are a great way to get things out there. We did find during COVID that people were really happy to attend our Zoom presentations. We did a lot of them. I did one on Cuba, of course, that people really loved. That was after COVID, but we did a lot of Zoom presentations, and then try to get people engaged. So last year I had the idea, why don't we have a cutest owl of 2024 contest? So we picked 10 owls and had people vote on it. And we had school classes voting, and people just loved it. So, and as a result, we got quite a few donations too. People become interested. So whatever grabs the public imagination and gets people interested in birds is really important. And hopefully they will donate to your banding operations as well. We also did a collaboration with a local art group where we produced art bird cards, and we chose kind of our most common species, and then artists would illustrate them, and then we would put a little bit of information on the back, and then these were sold and they did very well. So then, of course, there's bird walks. We do bird courses with local some of our local community groups, and we do get money for that, and craft fairs, garage sales. Every little bit helps to keep some funding to be able to operate bird banding. And then once you have all these volunteers, how do you manage them? So this is just a short video clip of how we assign how people can sign up for different events.
Hi, I'm Robin, and I'm the volunteer coordinator for Rocky Point Bird Observatory. We have over 200 volunteers that help us with our maps, fall migration, owl monitoring, and education events throughout the year. Trying to coordinate volunteers to cover these shifts every day used to be a huge job until we started using the online volunteer scheduling program, When to Help. When to Help is free for nonprofits, and it can be accessed from your computer or your phone on a free mobile app. As the coordinator, I create custom schedules that include start and end times for the shifts, different positions for banders, extractors, scribes, and census, and I can send out messages to individual or to all volunteers. Volunteers can then access When to Help and sign up for the shifts that they want. They'll receive an email or text notification when they sign up. Plus, When to Help also syncs to your Google Calendar. If something comes up, it's easy for them to drop shifts and so that somebody else can sign up. When to Help also has great reporting so that you can check the stats for things like volunteer hours. So if you're looking for an easy way to manage all of your volunteers at the banding station, I suggest you check out When to Help on whentohelp.com.
So that pretty much ends my presentation. I just want to say one thing that we have learned at Rocky Point Bird Observatory is to see what works best at your banding station and be creative, be open, try something. If it doesn't work, then you don't have to do it. But if it does work and you really like how it improves bird safety or efficiency or your volunteer participation, then I really recommend being adaptable. I've been to some places where they've been doing things the same way for over 30 years. And I think it's really great to be open-minded and find what works for you in your particular banding station or bird observatory. And I just want to thank everyone for attending today and listening. I'm going to stop sharing now, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jannaca. That was such a good presentation. Really cool just to see all of the innovations you guys have come up with and really cool to think about. And I think one of my favorite things is just seeing how adaptable a lot of the things are. Really you can find solutions that would be anywhere in the world. So
Yeah.
cool. Do we have any questions? You can either raise your hand and ask the question, or you can put the questions in the chat. I was checking. I haven't seen any questions roll in as you were talking. I had one question for you actually as we
Sure.
wait to see if anyone else does. Where does Rocky Point get a lot of their funding?
Um, well, we do apply for government grants, and that's probably a lot of it. We have also, we at our station we do have a way to with a QR code people can donate. We
Oh, that's
also
clever.
Yeah, we also have a donation. Most people don't carry cash anymore, so but we do get cash. We do have a little container, and I will say that I have become a lot more open when I'm there banding, saying, "Hey, we're a nonprofit. We rely on, people's generosity. We're not charging you to be." I don't say that necessarily, but just the fact that any little bit helps. And I do find that I'm often surprised. I will find out the next day someone has, sent a donation of $200 because they really enjoyed coming to the station, and I had no idea at the time. So just being open about how we all need funds to keep going. And obviously government, our applications we also, yeah, we're always applying for grants. that's ongoing, and that's what everyone has to do. Some come through, some don't. But then we also have built up some donors. It's taken us a long time. We've had years where we even wondered how we were going to operate. It's not like, we are not a wealthy bird observatory, but we have seen our donors grow over the years. So that's why it's important to keep getting out, putting yourself out there, and doing public outreach, and getting people interested in birds, in their local birds. What birds are there? Learn to love them and why they need to be protected is huge. And that's just in communicating. And it's over time, it does start to work.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. Thank you. We do have a question from Zoya Buckmeyer, and she says, "Great presentation. Thank you, Jannaca." Her question, does Rocky Point Bird Observatory have a hummingbird banding training program? And I'd be curious to know this too, because hummingbird banding is something we would love to bring to the Caribbean.
Yeah, I'm sure, and I can totally understand that. Well, we are fortunate to have Alison Moran, who has co-authored many papers on rufous hummingbirds in particular, and she has been banding here for a long time. She is really a highly ethical and conscientious bander, above and beyond. Like, she's quite something. She's a very, very good teacher. Um, yeah. We don't have like hummingbird training per se, but it is something that maybe we could think about going forward. I find, I trained with Allison. She's really excellent. And I admire her deeply, especially her ethics. I just find that's really important, especially in dealing with hummingbirds. And I would love to see more hummingbird research take place, especially where we only have a few species here. And I think it would be great if, anyway, let's something to think about and collaborate with perhaps
Okay,
in the future.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Maybe future ideas. I'm on that note too. I do have one more question. Often in the Caribbean, we try to send people to different internships because I'm sure as you can attest, nobody can really learn banding from just one workshop that's a week
Yeah.
long. Does Rocky Point have the ability to host interns for like summer or fall migration or spring migration season?
Okay, well, I am happy to announce that this is possible going forward. Our main drawback for years and years is that we don't have our own place. But just recently, this year, we still have the details to be worked out, but we now have a place to house people. Yeah, I know, we're ecstatic. So I personally would like to see us participate in that and have people come and work with us as interns. And I think we're just like, this is just a recent development, and there is a lot to be gained, as you said, by going to different places. I have loved going to different places and seeing different techniques. And anyway, again, something that we could think about hopefully doing.
Oh,
And
cool. Well, that's fantastic news. I know, especially after seeing a lot of your presentation, I'm sure people would love to visit your banding station, and it just sounds like a ton of great potential for an internship. So it definitely sounds like you and I should be in touch about that.
Well, we definitely, if people are interested in visiting, of course, we welcome visitors. And now we have a place where people can go, whether according to their financial abilities, either very minimal cost for the night or whatever, possibly even free.
Cool.
But yeah, so we will definitely be looking into this more in future, but we really do enjoy having we welcome other banders or people who love to volunteer at bird observatories to visit us, and we do our best to accommodate people, even before our recent situation where we now seem to have a place where we can house people.
Well, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. We'll definitely be in touch about that. Is there any, it doesn't look like there's any other questions.